bringing you news, politics, and whatever else tickles my fancy. Welcome to the Ho Ho Show, and I'm your host, Ho Ho. Well, for those of you that were listening to this last time I attempted to do this episode, I apologize. I forgot to turn my mic back on. It was horrible. In my defense, I got a touchscreen lappy-tappy, and I touched it with my finger. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, it didn't work. It's still not working. I'm still trying to play with it. I don't know why I'm still playing with it, but I'm still playing with it. I don't even know what I did. I don't know what happened. Maybe if I do that. I wonder if I do that, if it'll work. Nope, it still ain't working. But anyway, guys, I am live in the attic on the Ho Ho Show, and I am your host, Ho Ho. Well, guys, alright, so, back to what I was going to be doing. This is the second attempt at this podcast of this show. Oops. But, alright. Kind of going down memory lane earlier today, and just one of them things that, thinking back of my childhood, and I was thinking back on Saturday morning cartoons, and one of them things that and I'm seeing a lot of these things pop up on Netflix now. Hold on one second, let me cough. There we go. But yeah, one of these things that and I'm noticing these popping up on Netflix a lot. And, that's the original Voltron back in 1984, if I remember correctly. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe from like 82, 83, maybe 87. Heck, I don't remember. You had Speed Racer. You had Tom and Jerry. You had the Smurfs. You had Scooby-Doo. You had... Well, my later childhood, you had, the Animaniacs. You had, of course, Mickey Mouse and, them Disney cartoons as well. Porky Pig and Donald Duck. You had the Rescue Rangers. You had Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers. You had DuckTales. Woo! You had some good, wholesome... cartoons back then, they weren't ridiculous, they weren't foul, they weren't, good children's cartoons, and, one year for Christmas, I had gotten, as a present, I don't remember if it was a birthday present or whether it was a Christmas present, because, it's like 2 days apart, guys, so, they all just kind of blend together, so, but I don't remember which one it was, but I had gotten the, Season 1, Volume 1 of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So, of course, I watched them. I watched every one of them. And it was one of them things that it was like, looking back and watching that, I felt dirty. How as a child did I like that? It's just, I watch it now and it's just, it's horrible. It's definitely not what I remembered it to be, and it's really not. But, back then, it was just the greatest show ever, and I'm sure a lot of, I've watched Animaniacs since, and that show is just as I remembered it. I was, later, I was, older, late teenagers whenever I was watching that show. So, not that huge, and, of course, who can, set aside things like Disney with Mickey Mouse and Minnie and, Donald Duck and all them other characters that, Looney Tunes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, who can really, put those guys aside? But, just listening, just watching that show, and one of the things that, that really, and I'd almost have to say that I remember this probably more than the actual shows themselves, and it wasn't necessarily the what he was saying, but if you remember, if you've ever, if you're a fan, if you've ever watched He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But at the end of each episode, you had the little alien dude, the guy in the red shirt, no other lower body at all. I mean, he was just a hovering red shirt with the hat that had an O on it. And I think his name was like Orc, if I remember correctly. I may totally be mistaken on that, but I think his name was Orc. And he used to go, and sometimes it was Man-at-Arms that did it. Yeah, sometimes it was Man-at-Arms. I remember that now. But, he would get on and he would give like a moral of the episode each and every episode. So I mean, it wasn't just entertainment. It wasn't just something to watch. It was something that actually gave you food for thought, something that gave you kind of a moral foundation, if you will, and, as far as TV shows go in my childhood, it didn't stop with just cartoons. I mean, it went on to, watching things like Mork and Mindy, the Dick Van Dyke Show, Three's Company, the Andy Griffith Show, Matlock, which was later because it was still, Andy Griffith, but, even still. You had Columbo. You had Jake and the Fat Man. Yeah, that was a good show too. But it was just, you had a lot of different things in there, and it wasn't, at least with a lot of the cartoons, like, yeah, some of it was, entertainment just for the sake of entertainment. I mean, let's face it, Animaniacs was just crazy, and it wasn't, there wasn't a moral attached to it, and I'm not trying to say that, like, things back then were better because they were moral, I'm not saying that at all, but it still wasn't, it wasn't entertainment for the sake of entertainment. For instance, I mean, you got, and granted, I don't even know what kind of, cartoons they have out anymore. I mean, I've been checked out for so long, but I mean, you look at what cartoons we see around nowadays. Of course, you're talking, South Park and, American Dad and Family Guy and the Cleveland Show and different things like that. And I mean, you're talking, some of their, especially with Family Guy, I mean, it's okay. Look, just because it's a cartoon does not mean it is children friendly. All right. And that's one of them things about this cartoon. These cartoons, they are not children's friendly. It is very deceiving, I guess, in that way. And it's a shame that, granted, kids nowadays are so much more ahead of where I was when I was a kid, but, you almost got to ask, is that really a good thing? Is it really? When I was a kid, it was like, I didn't have a cell phone. Of course, there wasn't cell phones, not when I was young like that, not at all. Or at least if there were cell phones around, they weren't out there a lot. They were, really just starting. Come on, guys. I grew up I grew up in the, the birthing of the computer age. Okay. I remember, junior high, the school more or less just had computers in it, and going down and playing Oregon Trail on a Commodore. Actually, I have no idea if it was a Commodore or not. It wasn't a Commodore. It was a, an old school computer, one of them things that took the 3.5 inch, disc, and then that 4.25 inch or something huge disc, and the power switches on them things were in the back. It was Windows 3.1 if you were lucky. A lot of it was, running MS-DOS, which was Windows. You had to know some, you had to know what you were doing whenever you're talking with that kind of stuff, with MS-DOS. For those of you that don't know, MS-DOS stands for Microsoft Disk Operating System. And back in the day of, like Windows 95 and Vista and whatnot, they still included what was called the DOS shell, so you can still do a lot of, things on MS-DOS if you wanted to. You couldn't necessarily write programs onto it like with the Commodore, because the Commodore was MS-DOS. That's more or less what a Commodore was. This was before Windows. It was very much before Windows. But, I grew up in the age of, the birthing of computers. So I mean, I've dabbled just a little bit. I've had some fun with it, but no, I mean, it's different. So I mean, kids are way more advanced than what I was back then, and even still, guys, I'm like, I can't say as if this is really a good thing. I mean, be a kid. Allow your children to be children. Allow them to have fun. I mean, don't. I mean, the worst thing you can ever tell a kid is to sit down, calm down, shut up. I mean, because you don't want to stifle their creativity. You don't want to hinder their imagination. And I mean, whenever I was a kid, I played with this thing called outside. And I got kicked out of the house, and I had to go there all the time. That's what I had to play with. I had a bike, I used it. I didn't get, my mom and dad were not my taxi service. I was like, hey, no. Hey, Mom, can I go somewhere? Yeah, you can. Okay. Can I, are you busy? Depends on what you want. Can you take me? No. You got a bike. I bought you a bike. You can ride it. Okay, fine. And I'm not complaining, but it was just, when I was a kid, if you wanted to go somewhere, you took yourself. That's what bikes were for. You went, you took yourself. There you go. Done. Over with. You're good. But now again, different time. No, I don't want to say different time because, those type of things have been around since Bible times. I lived still live, actually. I am now living again back in my hometown. So, I mean, it is a smaller town. So I'm like, I don't live in a big city. I've lived in a big city. I used to live downtown St. Louis, 4th Street, in the Mansion House apartment building right there off of, like go out on the balcony, bam, there's the arch. It was good during the 4th of July. It was very, very cool. Any game going on, because I lived like a handful of blocks away from the Savage Center, the Edward Jones Dome. I wasn't that far away from Busch Stadium. It was, there was just sometimes just so holy crap, I mean, you are not, driving in there was sometimes horrible because, we'd go back home, we'd go back home into Illinois and, come back on the weekend, like late Sunday or sometimes Saturday, depending on how the week ended up going and what our work schedules were. But, we'd go back home and it's just like the place was absolutely just crowded. I mean, there ain't no other way to put it, and I have no idea how I went from, one of them ADD moments again. I have no idea how I went from Saturday morning cartoons to, oh yeah, that's how I did that. So, but anyway, it was a different, not a different time. I keep trying to do that. Different time. No, it wasn't a different time. Not on this, but I lived in a small city. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that living in a small city, you don't have to worry about. Like, do we have bullies? Yes. Do we have gangs? Not really. I mean, we've got, cliques and groups. I mean, that more or less. Oh, I got the hiccups again. That's horrible. Let me get a drink. I'm going to take a slight break right quick, get a drink, and when I get back, I'm going to discuss some of the groups on this, Might even slide into a slight topic. Just kind of depends on how this goes. So small break, and when I get back, I'm going to have some more fun talking about my hometown. All right. But as I was saying, back whenever I was going to school, we didn't have gangs. We had, cliques or like social groups. We had the geeks. We had the nerds. We had the skaters. We had the jocks. We had the cheerleaders, which, we pretty well considered them all jocks, type of thing, because they were all of the same clique, just the female side of the jocks, the same type of clique. So, that's what we had whenever I was going through school. We did not have, gang problems, not at all, So, it was just a problem that you didn't have to deal with. So, just riding your bike everywhere in town and whatnot. Granted, we had our fair share of crazy drivers, but, if you're a kid, you ride your bike on the side streets and you don't really have to worry about it. Although, granted, people seem to tend to drive a lot more stupid and crazy on the side streets than what they do on the main streets because they think they'll get away with it easier, but, that's beside the point. But, let's go back to the topic at hand. I kind of went into the weeds on this episode, but, I'm having a good time, so I don't care. But, just the shows that I grew up with, and they were some good shows. Granted, I have no idea what I was thinking on He-Man. Watching that, the show sucks. Now, it totally sucks. I can't say as if... Now, granted, I watched every one of the episodes that I got. I had to for that whole, walk down memory lane type of thing, so it was good times. But, I'm seeing these things pop up on Netflix, and I think I didn't really get too much into that one before I got sidetracked. But, they got, they got, of course, He-Man. I've seen some episodes of those on Netflix. The original Voltron I'm seeing on there. The Dick Van Dyke Show, and I'm seeing the Andy Griffith Show, and, but, man, I'll tell you what I'd really love to see on there is, the Dukes of Hazzard. Oh, yeah. That was a good sitcom from back in the day, too. Oh, that was excellent. That was good classic entertainment, though, back then, But, yeah, it's just one of them things. It was, it was good stuff, and it wasn't, it didn't have to be, I guess you can say, foul to be funny. And I think that's one of the things that really separates, TV shows and cartoons back then than now. It's just back then, it just, people didn't have that mentality that it had to be foul to be funny. That's one of them reasons why I like, all right, y'all's going to hate me, I'm sorry. But, like Cosby, the Cosby Show. That was a good show back in the day. Of course, we didn't know what kind of a guy he was back then. None of that. None of us knew that. We were just fans of the show. And this isn't condoning him as a person. This is just his show. He had the Fat Albert. That was a good show. Cartoon show. Yeah, that was a very good show. Take that another step, with this comedy that he did, Bill Cosby himself. Dude, I have that on VHS. Kids don't even know what VHS is. But yeah, on VHS. But, we didn't know the man. We just seen him on TV, good stuff. And I ain't talking about what he done. No, I'm not getting into that. That's not the point of any of this. But yeah, it was different, shows were just different back then, Not like I have anything against vulgarity. Fuck, I use vulgar language all the time. Did I put this as explicit? I have no idea. I better do that. I guess at this time of night it really doesn't matter, I don't think I'm going to have any 10-year-olds listening to this. At least not right now, anyway. I mean, yeah. Oh, okay, guys. All right, I'm going to play a clip right here. All right. Now, y'all tell me if you remember this show from back in the day. Yeah, you see, this was good quality entertainment back then. Sanford and Son. That was a good show. That was, oh man, it's been a while since I've actually watched that show. But if I remember correctly, that one was kind of pushing the envelope on stuff. I mean, it really was. Some of the stuff that he said, I mean, it was very much pushing the envelope. But he wasn't just like out there in your face with it. And I want to switch gears just a little bit too, a little bit more. I want to take this into the music, because my mama one time, she was she was complaining about my music. It's just like, all your music is about drugs and sex and jugs and sex. And I'm like, Mama, your music, I called her Mama, I'm like, Mama, your music was the same way as mine is. My music just comes out and says it. It doesn't say it in nuance and innuendos. I was like, that's the only difference between your music and my music. The beat is different. I go, that's it. She's like, that ain't true. I go, really? Puff the Magic Dragon, huh? And then you see her face go, because she didn't realize. Because it's speaking in innuendo and what's that other nuance? Yeah, nuances. It's speaking in code. My music, just this generation's music, it doesn't speak in code. So, her music did. You had Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. You had, of course, Puff the Magic Dragon. You had, what was some of the other good ones that I whipped out right there? Not that I'd be whipping. Never mind. But, it's just one of them things that, back then, I mean, yeah. The music all talked about the same thing, but it didn't in such a way that it was hidden from the children on the real meaning of the song, to where an adult could, hear it. And I mean, this is something you also see in like, with like The Simpsons and, what's another show that was really big on that one too? Just kind of, The Simpsons was like that, but there's other shows that was like that too, that, I mean, like it spoke in code, which is why, parents had no problem watching some of the kids' programming, because they threw stuff out there, on purpose as a double meaning kind of a thing, or just, threw stuff in there to where parents, but they didn't make a big deal out of it, like, to make the kids know that, they'd still make it funny for the kid, but there was that little hidden message in there that the adults got, which put a whole new level of humor into it. And, the adults can get some good laughs out of it too. And that's one of them things that, I mean, I notice now, like, just like, well, okay, Shrek. Yeah, that's a good one. Just some of the stuff that they throw in that movie, yeah. Oh, wow. When my parents first got a DVD player, okay, now they're used to VHS, and for y'all older people, you know what I'm talking about. If you have a movie that you bought from a store, not one of them things that you recorded an episode on from TV, you bought it, a pre-recorded tape, there you go, and you plugged it in, and it would just automatically start playing. Because the VHS was smart enough to know that you put this thing in here. It's a pre-recorded. The only thing you can do is play. And if you're putting it in, that means you want to watch it. So it would just automatically play. Okay. Good stuff. So my mom and dad, going off of the same logic. And the logic was sound. They get Shrek. And they're watching the thing, the scene that's got all the people, the menu screen. All right, so let's just start this story where I came into it. You know, mom and dad say that they had a movie, they had Shrek. I go, okay, hey, I got a question. Did you watch the movie all the way through the credits? And mom goes, no, I did not. I go, well, you really should have, because after the credits, there was a whole nother thing onto that movie that you apparently didn't see. And I go, let me show you this. So I brought up, the dance thing that they did at the end of it. It was good. It was a good show. It was a good part of the show. It was, I liked it. It was very awesome. And we watched that. Mom and I did. And then after that, Dad comes home. I'm like, hey, Dad, I got, I want to show you this. And I bring him in and, have the thing in there. And Dad's like, I have already seen that for 15 minutes. That thing did not autoplay, and I did not know you had to hit the play button to get that thing to start. So they watched that menu screen with the donkey all jumping around and whatnot for 15 minutes before they decided maybe I should hit play. Oh, it was awesome. Yeah, I come by it honestly, guys. I'm an odd duck, and I come by it honestly. But but that again, that's one of them shows too that it's good, wholesome cartoon. It's a good show. It's good for kids because it's funny on the children level. But they also throw stuff in there that unless you're an adult, you ain't going to get it. And the kids are none the wiser. And that's something that's cool. That's something that, in a lot of ways, I think is missing from a lot of programming nowadays. So it'd be nice to get back to that. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to that simpler time. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it at all. Well, guys, thank you for joining me. Y'all have fun, and I will catch you next time. I am actually going to be off tomorrow, so it is hard telling what I want to come up with and what stories I will have for you. I'm probably going to be doing the show on this one. And I still have some more plans and stuff to do on Religion Ho-Ho's Way. So we'll have some stuff on there as well. So y'all have fun. Take it easy. Good night. Sleep tight. And if the bed bugs bite, then by golly, fight it back.